Good morning.
Hello, Robin.
How are you?
I'm all right. You?
Yeah, fine. I always feel like going, good morning.
You do look a little bit like him. Yeah.
Well, not much, but the name kind of rings.
Yeah. But with those headphones on as well. That's what I meant.
Yeah.
Morning, all.
Morning.
Good morning.
Morning.
Morning, Sarah.
Morning.
Morning.
Good morning.
Morning, Kat. Morning, Ian.
Morning.
Guy. Morning, Cameron.
Morning.
Mm.
Just back from my first step, Robin. So if I start behaving strangely, call my wife and tell her.
Yeah. If that extra head starts appearing on your shoulder, then we'll know what's happened. Yeah. You should be all right. Jan's been for a vaccine already, and she still looks as bright as ever. So
I'm fine.
And mine yesterday as well.
What was that?
I had my vaccine yesterday as well, Jan.
Oh, can't hear.
I've got mine on Saturday.
Have you?
I'm on Saturday too, Robin.
This isn't because I'm older than all of you, is it? No. That can't possibly be. I had mine,
Oh, what a
I had
shame.
mine 3 weeks ago.
We're going to wait till June for mine. Oh.
Oh dear.
Yeah. It's getting to the stage where do I admit that I've had the vaccine?
I think I said to you, Robin, I'm always the first. I put everything on social media, you know. And I thought, I'm not putting that on because I know everybody will come back to me and go, how old are you?
It's funny, isn't it? I put mine on social media and it was my overwhelmingly most commented and liked and kind of hand clapped post. So that was quite interesting.
You don't look a day over 75.
Thank you. Yeah, there's
Daniel, how are things down in Cornwall? I saw an article saying that that hotel that's got the G7s having issues with planning permission.
Hardest Bay, yeah.
Yeah, well, I think it's something to do with they chopped down a load of trees, and they're saying that's no, for an eco hotel, that's no unecological. But what they're not reporting is that these trees they planted themselves, and they've also replanted other areas of their land to take into consideration what they've cut down. So I think it's a bit of a one-way story, and there are lots of demonstrations of people not wanting the G7 to go there. I saw a picture, somebody had written "Stop G7" in the sand, massive letters that you can obviously see from the hotel and see from the air. But every hotel I've spoken to down here, or contacts of contacts, everyone, even us ourselves, we've got trade now from G7. We've got a big group booking in, and next door hotel have got an embassy booked in with them. Everywhere's booked up with something to do with G7. There's a small furniture making company in Roon Minor, which is a tiny village. It's smaller than Mullion. And they've been approached to design the tables and design different things. So at the moment, I didn't think it'd get as far as to the lizard of the effect, but it really has, and it is bringing business to all corners of hospitality down here, which can only be a good thing.
Yeah. So why don't some people want it?
I think a lot of it's to do travelling in around Carbis Bay and St Ives is a nightmare. In the best of times. In the summertime, I don't certainly travel to Carbis Bay or St Ives just because of how busy it is, with the influx of tourists. And they're saying they're gonna block off. I think it's like a 5-mile radius or 10-mile radius going in and out of St Ives and Carbis Bay. That's going to cause a massive problem already on a strained, transport system anyway. So that's part of it. And there's also a lot of eco protesters, everyone flying into Newquay, everybody then the diesel, and it's just not being very, eco-friendly. I think is the main reason.
Yeah, there's always somebody who's not that happy when suddenly the hospitality industry is doing well and getting a big event in there.
Yeah, it's crazy. We've taken now a reservation for September. They're going to do. They're filming a motion picture down on the Lizard Peninsula, and we've picked up some really good trade from that in the last 2 weeks of September, when we usually peter off anyway. So things are really, really happening down here. It's really, it's really nice to see.
Do you think it's the government's way of trying to make up for the fact that that Cornwall's lost so much funding through Brexit, through the complaints that they're having, the fact that they've only got about 5% of the funding they would have got through the EU?
Maybe some of it's that. Maybe some of it's that we're a tier 1 area for such a long time that people are perceiving it to be the safest possible area. The Lizards are massive. There's so much green land, and there's so much area that people can be socially distant. Are they choosing that over places like London or Bath or Bristol because of the population density? I don't know, but it's good. But it's good for business. I know that much.
Right. Well, let's. Yep, we've got 61 on today so far. Looking good. So obviously during the pandemic, a lot of people are doing a lot of things to sort of help out wherever they can. And one of our forum members has been doing his bit for the NHS, Luke Martin, and he's volunteered to give us a bit of an update on the inside story on how things are going with COVID and things, just to give us an idea of where we are. So go ahead, Luke.
Good morning, everybody. Can you hear me okay? Because I'm in the deepest, darkest depths of Wales this morning. So view from a bridge, where are we with COVID? So I think the key take-home messages are vaccination is working. In certain areas, and especially the southwest and Wales, we're seeing an incredibly good uptake on both first and second dose vaccination. I think the southwest is on track to be one of the first regions to hit nearly 100% across all of the current age groups in terms of vaccination uptake. Wales, we're on about 1 in 4 people in the population now. And the next 2 weeks, you're going to see a significant uptake in the vaccine, partly due to the arrival of a significant quantity within the UK. Wider, further afield, lockdown is also working. And I know certainly when you look across the UK and the devolved administrations, it's worked to varying degree. I mean, certainly in Wales, we're now looking at an average case rate of around 50 per 100,000, which is the lowest across a significant part of the UK. What does this mean for hospitality reopening? Well, hopefully we're going to start to see signs providing case rates stay down, providing the impact on the NHS starts to reduce. Hopefully we should start to see hospitality restrictions easing. I know the Welsh Government's planning it around April time, ready for the Easter holiday, but obviously with the caveat warning of don't take bookings from people in England, as an example. And that's right from the top from the Welsh Government. Across other areas, are we on track to reopen? I think that's still a bit up for debate. I think it still depends on vaccination uptake. They're forecasting another surge in cases. When that will occur is anybody's guess at the moment. It's anywhere from May through to August. And I think that's going to be the key player on reopening of the hospitality industry, the travel and tourism. And then obviously the fully reopening of borders, I think is still on the cards for July, but I think we just need to maintain a watching brief at the moment. So I think the key messages we're certainly hearing are it's working, but we're still monitoring, we're still reviewing the data as we go through this process every couple of weeks. And hopefully at some point in the not too distant future, we should start to see a more wider reopening of the hospitality and leisure sector. So I'll stop there, Robin.
Okay.
I think that's a key point. If anybody's got any questions, then please feel free to ask.
Anybody out there have any queries? Luke, do you think there's any chance that they'll bring forward the opening date for because there's this in the House of Lords, there's something, or in the courts there's something about wanting to open the indoor hospitality before the 17th of May when they open the outdoor. Do you think there's any chance of that happening?
So there is a court case going through at the moment from the Greater Manchester region, where essentially they want to open hospitality the same time as all the non-essential shops and retail outlets open. I think this is very much being pushed by the local government association, by the mayor, with you've let the kids go back to school, you're letting people go out and do all of their non-essential shopping. So why can't you let people book hotel rooms, go and travel, and kind of get back to some normality? I think the key factor that's limiting that at the moment is the rise of these new variants. And hopefully people will have seen on the news that they're doing more surge testing in 2 areas as a result of a discovery of these new variants. And I think the key concern is if they open it up earlier, are we then going to see this uptick in cases? Are we going to see more and more outbreaks as a result of people traveling and essentially getting back to normal? So I think there is a chance, but I think what will impact that is what happens in terms of, do they discover new variants? I mean, COVID's going to be around for the next year or so. The push at the moment is to get everybody vaccinated by, again, depending on who you talk to, anywhere from the end of July to the end of August, beginning of September. However, I think it's key to note that we will see some form of restrictions in place over the winter period this year and into next year. We don't quite know in terms of the epidemiology what's going to happen in terms of cases as we get to winter and people stay indoors more. A lot more activity is driven inside. So there are still a number of factors that could play into this. I mean, one hopes that we'll see an earlier reopening, but like with anything else, that there is the law still in place that says you must follow certain restrictions, and especially with this step down nationally rather than individual tiers. I think the challenge is going to be where we go from there.
Okay. Stefan's just asked, are there any thoughts on the vaccine passport? I mean, I know today they were saying that it is highly likely they'll end up giving people something if they want to travel abroad. But
so I think the challenge on the vaccine passport is twofold. There's vaccine passport to enter the UK, and there's going to be vaccine passport to exit the UK. And I think that there are two distinctly different challenges. With the one to enter the UK, it depends what's happening within Europe, within the other countries that travel to the UK, and how they're managing their vaccine rollout, how they're managing their cases. A number of countries have already said, actually, we're not going to ask for a vaccine passport, and we're not going to ask for you to have had the vaccine before you travel, which, whilst there's this, I guess, demand and interest in foreign travel, then potentially increases the risk to the UK with all of these travellers coming back, having mixed with people from different countries, and possibly, again, bringing back cases or bringing back variants of concern. And I think the other risk we have is lockdown fatigue. People are bored of lockdown. there's an assumption now that once you've had the 2 doses, you don't need to follow the lockdown rules anymore, which is absolutely not the case. So I think in summary, yes, we will see some form of digital passport for travel. Hopefully it's not going to have a significant impact on the industry reopening, but again, it's got to be a unified approach. I know IATA and some of the more worldwide bodies are saying we fully support this. We think it's a key step to get people back traveling again. So I think it's just a case of watch this space at the moment.
Okay, well, at least it's looking good. It's in general the situation. Let's just hope things carry on that sort of in the right direction. And if they do have passports, let's hope they somehow permit some of the international tourists to come over, as long as they've got the.
Yeah, and I think that's the key challenge. And I think just to pick up on one of the comments in the chat from Alina. Yes, the European Commission is advising against it, saying it's unethical, but I think we need to understand that we're no longer part of the European Commission, and we will do our own thing to safeguard the UK.
Yeah, it's also commercial, isn't it? I mean, a lot of these things are led by commerciality. It may not be ethical in some people's eyes, but at the end of the day, if the airlines believe they can actually start working again by insisting on having a vaccine passport, people will produce a vaccine passport to be able to travel.
And I think the other thing is, you touched on a very valid point. It's very, very commercial. So there's a huge black hole in the government's finances. They've essentially raided the UK war chest. So the money that's come from this is what we would use if we had to fight an international conflict around the globe. And you're talking up to £450, £500 for one of these recognised COVID tests to be able to travel out of the country. And then obviously when you return, is this the end of the quarantine hotels? I don't think so. I think if anything, they're going to be around for quite a considerable period of future. But then when you look at the arrangements in place in the quarantine hotels, it's extremely difficult to manage on a longer term basis. And I know Laura's been sat there patiently with her hand up. Laura, have you got a question?
Yeah, we're just sort of touching on the vaccinations. We've recently published an article that's gone in the local press talking about vaccines and whether employees and workforce should and shouldn't be having them. And absolutely elements of what Lena was saying, but also what you were saying about the legalities and how complex that is going to be for the governments to be able to enforce and put it at the hands of certainly hospitality by saying, well, actually, you know, these individuals aren't allowed to be into these environments unless they've got a passport, which opens significant discriminatory issues in the UK. And I think, you know, it's going to be open to contesting. I do think it will be challenged in the courts, which is why I think Boris and the team are all nervous about having the vaccinations unless it's what they call a genuine occupational requirement. So,
I think that's interesting because, I mean, we've been having the discussion within health. So, for example, to work in one of these vaccination centres, the current approach is you have to have had the vaccination, which makes sense because you're dealing with some of the vulnerable cohorts of population. If we look at from a hospitality perspective, if you were to get a directive from the government to basically say for your staff to come back to work, they've got to have the vaccination, or for visitors to come and stay in your hotels, they've got to have the vaccination, and you have to turn around and decline any bookings from anybody that can't prove it. As you say, Laura, there's a lot of legalities, complexities. You then fall into potentially court cases under the Equalities Act if you have people with disabilities that can't have the vaccination. Are you then going to introduce loopholes for those individuals to be able to travel, be able to stay away? And then you've got obviously international travel, and actually is the requirement going to be a UK government requirement, or is it going to be a foreign nation. So, for example, Emirates and all of the Far East countries have already rolled out a form of vaccination passport. So you travel into the Emirates, you've got to have a sticker on your passport that says I've proved that I've had the vaccination, and a number of other countries are following suit from that perspective. So I think it is a very complicated, and I think, Katrina, just to pick up on your point around vaccination passports addressing the different strains. So I think, again, there are going to be updates to the vaccinations. There are going to be booster shots to address new strains that come out. And again, it's how do you track that everybody's had the right vaccination? And the only way you can do that is via a digital app that's linked to your NHS summary care record, which details what vaccinations you've had. And I think we could go back to the old system where you have to have a piece of paper on you that's stamped by your GP to say, yes, I've had this, and this, which you still have to have for certain countries anyway.
Oh, well, we shall see. I mean, the idea of everybody having a fully linked ID with their national security number, their NHS number, their passport, and all the rest of it, I think would drive fear into a lot of people. But actually, it's what a lot of the international countries already have. So we'll have to see. Have to move on because we've got two presentations, and the first of them is Simon giving us some information on food cost control and profitability. So thank you very much, Luke. If anybody has any more questions for Luke, then I'll pop his contact details, and I'm sure he'll be happy to give any advice or any comments after the forum. Simon.
Thank you, Robin. Thanks for the opportunity. I don't have any children here to disturb me, but that's technology doesn't let me down. Share my screen. How's that, Robin? Can you see my screen?
Yeah, we can see that.
Okay, great. Okay. Right, well, morning, everybody. Yes, I'm here to talk about food profitability. I'm going to talk to you about why I think it's so important, some of the basics of food profitability. I'm going to run through a quick practical application and also talk about the challenges for 2021 and beyond, and also some support and solutions that are available to all of us. Oh, I'm struggling to move on to the next slide. Can you see that slide, Robin?
Yeah.
Right. Don't know what's going on with my computer. Okay, so just introducing myself, as my contact details there, which I know Robin will circulate. I just want to talk through my career in hospitality, which started in 1985 as a very skinny junior chef. I worked in Cotswold Country House Hotels for 5 years. I quickly realized that I wanted a little bit more than that from my career, so I went on and completed an HND at the University College Birmingham, College of Food as it was then. The bulk of my career is spent with PSL, 25 years almost. PSL, for those that don't know, are food procurement and consultancy business. So I led teams up and down the country and worked with clients up and down the country, as I say, for 25 years. Before the pandemic got me and I was made redundant, and quickly decided that the right move for me was to set up on my own, and that's how Profit Hounds was born. Okay, so just thinking about why is it so important? Well, in my view, it's absolutely essential for overall business profitability. And just to give you an indication, a 5 percentage point swing on the food margin of a typical hotel taking £1 million a year, going from 72 GP to 67, will typically cost £50,000. So it's big money, it's important, and it's important to get it right. Food revenue is typically 20 to 40% of overall revenue in hotels and can be up to as high as 70% in pubs. Just moving on, the business costs continue to increase, many of them beyond our control, so minimum wage, rent, rates, etc. But food profitability is an area that we can control, and we can also maximize profitability without necessarily sacrificing quality. You know, the two are not necessarily exclusively linked. So I hope that I can demonstrate to you how that works. COVID, whilst it's been absolutely devastating for our industry, it does give us an opportunity to reset the norm. So, you know, we may have gone into COVID serving roast sirloin of beef on our Sunday lunch menu. It doesn't mean that we need to come out of it serving that. You know, we can look at alternative products that will support our food profitability. Last point there is my view that food profitability has got to be sustainable. It can't just be a short-term fix. You know, it can't be putting up the prices and buying cheaper ingredients. That just simply won't work. Moving on now to just some of the basics of food profitability, and the food and the profit or cost equation. It is always price of the product multiplied by the quantity that you use divided by the revenue that you gain. That will give you the percentage. So looking at those PQ&R elements individually, price, the procurement bit, is about supplier selection, and certainly that's more important than ever. Price files, pretty obvious, but you know, I would encourage everybody to make sure that they have the current price files of their suppliers on record, because you're going to need those to access some of the other points of unlocking food profitability, like best price purchasing, like looking at alternative products. So I've just mentioned the sirloin of beef, which will be costing you 15 to 18 pounds a kilo. Rump of beef will have excellent eating quality if cooked correctly, and that will be 10 or 12 pounds a kilo. Talk to your suppliers about sending you electronic spend stats on a monthly basis so that you can understand where you're spending your money. Look at those volume lines and look at whether or not you can replace them and make savings to contribute to improved profitability. Quantity. So I'm sure Robin would agree with me. An accurate flash food report is probably the most important aspect of managing your food profitability. You don't want to get 10 days into the next period and have Robin email your food P&L and tell you that you're 5 points off budget. An accurate food flash will tell you where your margin is heading at any given point during that month. And it is important to stress the word accurate. You know, you need to verify the flash against the result, make sure that it's giving you correct data, and then use that information to affect your ordering and production. If you've got 6-day-a-week delivery from your suppliers, then use them. That will help you with your storage, stock rotation and wastage. And also, you know, menu costings is up there. It's important. It's not the be all and end all. It is very, very time consuming to do it correctly. Menu linkage. The more that you can reduce your list of SKUs that you purchase, the less likely you are to have wastage. Turning that product over more quickly is the ideal scenario. Lastly, revenue. This is where I think you can get a little bit creative. And you know, I would encourage you to maximise your tariffs. You know, don't be embarrassed about charging what you should charge. So if you're a hotel, a nice 4-star hotel that serves a plate of homemade biscuits with your coffees, and you're charging £3.50 for a coffee, maybe you should think about what the cost would be if you are taking that product within Costa. So I think you'd be more likely to be closer to £5. So have a look at that. Your comp set is going to be important. Menu layout can contribute to improving revenue. And also your front of house team is a very valuable asset in supporting your food profitability. Do they know what the highest margin dishes are? If they're asked for recommendations, perhaps they could suggest those high margin dishes. Perhaps you could set them sales targets. So, you know, listen guys, we want to target upselling desserts to 70% of our guests tonight. And lastly, accurate billing. You know, we don't want to work really hard on all those aspects of food profitability that I've just mentioned, and then for your billing process to fail, and for that second round of coffees to the business meeting isn't charged, or the second bottle of wine for dinner wasn't charged. So those are the basics. Now I'm going to move on and just give a short practical application of some of those theories. And I've got a picture there. Which burger is more profitable? Now, obviously they're the same image, but that's my point really. You know, you don't need to dial down the aesthetics of a product in order to improve its profitability. So let me just go on to the next slide and demonstrate what I'm thinking there. So burger A is on the menu at £12.95. It is from Barry the Butcher. It's an 8-ounce char grilled burger with grilled bacon, cheese and chips. It's got a limited customer journey. You either want the burger or you don't. Limited choice as well. It's an easy sell. Burgers are ever popular, and it's a good margin. You know, we're going to get 75% gross profit margin from that dish, and I've identified some of the key ingredient costs beneath there. So look, you know, if we had every dish returning 75%, we'd be delighted, I'm sure. So it's good, but what about great? So burger B, you can see straight away there that there's a stretch on the tariffs. So yeah, we're looking to offer the basic burger at £9.95, and then we've created some upsell opportunities so that if we're able to upsell all of those, we can stretch the tariff to £14.95. What I hope you can also see there is that as well as a beef burger, we've also got chicken already in the business because we've got a chicken dish on. So why not offer it as a chicken burger? There is a move to eating less red meat, so it's a good option in my view to create a little bit more of a story on the menu, a little bit of a burger section. So we're offering upsell opportunities, which in my mind leads to great service, lots more interaction with the front of house team and the guests. We're offering greater customer choice. We're offering bigger menu coverage physically. Rather than one line on the menu, we've got a nice little burger section, a little box on the menu. We're also offering a lower tariff point, which could encourage more business. We're also maintaining and actually improving profitability because we've taken some of the purchasing choices that we've got available to us, and the basic burger delivers an 80% margin. The upsell burger delivers an 83% margin. And just to explain how we've got to that point, I've identified the costs beneath. So you can see there that there's a 200-gram short rib and beef marrow-bone burger. Now that is an actual product that is available from a supplier that I work with, and that's its current price. What you may know is that 200 grams is actually not the same as 8 ounces. 8 ounces is 227 grams. So what we're employing there is a bit of shrinkflation, which the high street has seen. So even if we decide that actually that local burger is the best one, we've done the taste test, and actually it's the best one. If we can get Barry the butcher to drop the content to 7 ounce, we still save 12.5%. We've got cheese and bacon there, same as the other burger, but we've searched the price files and we found the best value product. And cheese and bacon is a couple of good example products where most suppliers these days supply those products. So your fruit and veg supplier, your wholesalers, even your fish suppliers will have cheese and bacon available. So search the price files, find the best price. And there's a few other examples there. I mean, the brioche bun, I'm suggesting that you take that from Breaks or another frozen supplier rather than a fresh product that will have limited shelf life. So that's the practical application of what I've talked about earlier, which I hope you'll find useful. Moving on to the next slide, just thinking about some of the challenges for 2021 and beyond. VAT, we now know that the 5% rate will be extended in hospitality until the end of September, when it will then move to 12.5%. How long that will last, we don't know. But what we do know is that typically that will result in a 2% margin impact for hospitality operators if, like most, you maintained the tariff and didn't pass that benefit back to the guests, which no one will blame you for doing that. So it's something to consider, you know, after we've got through what's going to be a tremendous summer, I think. Brexit, we haven't truly felt the full impact of that because we've been in lockdown. Having said that, my own personal view is that I think the impact is likely to be some increased costs of admin associated to importing and also some currency fluctuation. I don't foresee, once we get over an initial hiccup of perhaps some supply and demand, I don't think we're going to see a huge impact from that. That wave of cash is a challenge, because I think we all agree that hospitality is going to get absolutely hit with massive pent-up demand. And whilst that's going to be fantastic to have, it's a lovely problem to have, I think there's a danger that could draw the focus quite rightly to serving the guest rather than focusing on your food profitability. So now is the time to get all of those ducks in a row with food profitability so that you're ready to roll and really maximize the opportunity that's going to present itself. Dear old Gordon there, sorry if there's any chefs on the call. It's not meant as an overriding comment, but sometimes chef's ego can get in the way of food profitability, so we just need to be aware of that. Staff shortages and rising costs are certainly going to be something that we're going to need to contend with for the next period. Moving on, just final slide now. So just want to talk about some of the solutions and support available to us as hospitality operators. Look, you know, we can manage this, or you can manage this internally. Raise the focus internally. It's going to take a little bit of time, perhaps some meetings, but you can do it if you really raise the focus. In terms of managing the price, there's plenty of buying groups out there. I believe we've got Andy Morris on today from Enhance. Others include Pelican, Regency, that can help you manage that price element. Software and support services, Procure Wizard. I'm sure there'll be people on the call that engage with Procure Wizard and Access Group, market leader from my point of view. Really good system. What it doesn't do is negotiate the prices for you. There's others such as Kitchen Cuts, Fourth Hospitality, which again can be there to support your business. And consultants and management companies. I think we've got Julian and Gavin on the call today. And lastly, there's little old me that can help support food profitability. So I am done going through that, and really love to encourage some conversation and some questions about food profitability if we've got time. I've not been looking at the questions, if there has been any, Robin, but
there seems to be a couple of people, and including myself, have said yes, definitely Procure Wizard is a key one. I love it because the suppliers do all the work for you.
Yeah.
As far as actually, you know, and maintaining the prices, you just have to say yes, I agree, or ring them up and say, what do you mean you're going to put the price up? You know, that's why I love that. But a lot there's a vein about training, and I think that's very important. Making your team aware of what is which items are profitable, which you know.
Well, I just think it's your front of house team are a really valuable resource to help support you in your endeavours with food profitability.
Mm-hmm. Anybody got any questions? I want to move on quickly to Stuart. He's waiting there in the shadows to give us some information on social media. Anybody have one last question for Simon? If not, I'll include his details afterwards.
Yeah, just quick comments. I saw the post on LinkedIn from Simon, really great idea, just for renaming some products to the new.
That
was. Want to comment on that?
Yeah, no, thank you. Thank you, Alina. That was just, there was a BBC article that I saw that had taken some, I think it was spider crabs, and it had didn't exactly kind of sound that appealing, so they've renamed them as Cornish crabs, I think it was. And there's a few other examples of products that have just had a little PR makeover, really.
There's a Cornish pilchards are probably the best example of that.
Yeah, and there's a sole as well, Megram sole that you can rebrand a Cornish sole. Oh, and I think, Alina, the one that I talked about was grey mullet, where you might want to put that on the menu as silver mullet. Sounds a bit nicer.
It's all in the words, isn't it?
It's all in the PR, Robin. All in the PR.
Yeah, definitely. Right, so we'll move on quickly to Stuart and for our second presentation today. Thank you very much, Simon.
Thank you.
Yeah, thanks, Simon. That really took me back a bit as well. I used to have some bars and restaurants, and that really scared me as well and took me back. So thanks for that. It was really interesting. Right, I'll just share my screen. Let's have a look. Right, can everybody see the presentation?
Yep.
Perfect. Let me just see if I can get it on presentation mode. Right, can you still see it?
Mm-hmm.
Wonderful. Okay. So firstly, Robin, thanks very much for this. Sorry, I'm bathed in light. I'm redecorating my office. I'm sitting next to the window and the sun's just come out for the first time all morning. For those of you who don't know me, I know quite a few people on here, but my name is Stuart Booth and I'm the Director for the UK and Ireland for BCV. BCV is a subsidiary company of RateGain. And we are a hospitality social media company. We're the biggest one in the world, based out of Chicago. And what we're going to talk about today is we're going to talk a little bit about social media in relaunch and recovery. We're going to look at who BCV is very, very briefly, just because it will put some more context on some of the facts and figures. We're going to look at social changes that have happened over the last year due to the pandemic. We're going to look at who the new guest is as well. And that's both from a social point and a generational point. We're going to have a very quick look at some really, really simple strategy to get your social media moving for your hotel as we go into relaunch. And if we get time, we'll have a look at some content and what's really trending at the moment and how to make the most of it. So if I skip through very, very briefly, who is BCV? As it says here, we're the hospitality industry's #1 provider of tech-enabled social media solutions. So what that means in short is that we are a one-stop shop, a very comprehensive solution for hotels and their social media. The idea being that they don't have to go anywhere else for any aspect of their social at all outside of BCV. So that being said, we are a multi-award winning, I think we just won our 37th Adrian Award last week, which is lovely from HSMAI. But we are a multi-award winning creative content and account management team. We have a full team of copywriters, designers, graphic guys, you name it. We're also, where we get slightly different, we are a monitoring team. We have a team of living, breathing human beings with empathy and emotion who monitor our partners' social platforms 24 hours, 7 days a week. And what that basically allows us to do is, as social becomes bigger and bigger and bigger and more people use it to communicate with the hotels, that allows us to very much police their social platforms, and we can respond on behalf of or escalate to the hotel positive and negative interactions on their social platforms. We can look at sales opportunities and boost those towards the hotel and answer general questions on behalf of the guests. So we look after at the moment about 1 million interactions a month on social between guests and our hotel partners. And lastly, we're very, very data driven. So we have our own proprietary technology that allows us to plug into a hotel's comp set. And why that's important is because it allows you to keep your social strategy fluid in the market that specifically affects you and is around you rather than the market as a whole. So that just gives you a bit of an idea as to some of the partners that we have. We're very much in the luxury arena. We work with all the big groups, as you can see there, from your Fairmonts and your Hard Rocks and all your various Marriott brands, etc., etc. So we're very well versed in the industry. So first of all, let's look at the social situation. The pandemic has really, really changed the way social has been used and will change it going forward forever. So there's a few facts and figures and numbers in front of you here. The first one of which is 53 million active users for social media in the UK as of January. So that's about 78%, I think, roughly of the population. Since January, that's probably gone up another million or so. But it's been more and more widely used as a very much a window to the world for people during the pandemic. So people have been using it to buy goods and services more than ever. They've been using it as an aspirational tool to very much plan what they do when they get out of this. You can see here 80% of travellers are using social media to plan their future trips. And likewise, going across there, I recently had a good conversation with one of the directors of Facebook, who specifically looks after the travel side. And he told me that travel, hospitality and destination is now the #1 search on Instagram. It currently constitutes 45% of the total searches. And as you can see there as well, Instagram has actually added 111 million users in one quarter alone in 2020, and that was right at the end of 2020. So social is growing exponentially. On top of that, Facebook added 77 million users a day, and the overall usage went up 50%. So people very, very much tuned into their social. And we saw a big generational change as well, where older generations of people began using social media a lot more than they previously did. So let's take a look at the new guest. Now, these are our own figures. They're also from Edelman and Kantar. But I mentioned earlier that we have our monitoring team that monitor the interactions and the social movement between the guests and the hotels. Now, one of the things our monitoring team has seen is a 41% increase in messages from guests to the hotels via social in the last year. So these people aren't picking up the phone anymore. They're not sending emails anymore. They're finding it much, much quicker to go via social. Now, the problem with that is that social, therefore, messages therefore demand a response. And as we know, as people who have worked in hospitality for years and years, there's not always somebody in a hotel waiting to answer a Facebook question on what time can they check in. We all wear 9 hats a day in a hotel, but people on the other end don't understand that. And they expect you to be there like we are now, sitting in front of laptops, ready to tell them that it's 3 p.m. and no, they can't change it, or something along those lines. Okay, so one of the things we saw is this increase in questions around COVID restrictions, 4-fold increase, with people putting health first. And I think a major part of that is people don't know what to do. I don't know what to do next time I go into an airport. I haven't flown since I think last, God, I don't know, January, something like that. So the restrictions are all going to be different. Everything's going to be different the next time I go into an airport. So I don't know what to expect. People who don't work in hospitality and live and breathe hotels like we do aren't going to know what to expect in a hotel. So we've seen a massive increase in direct questions to the hotels around that. We've also seen that 61% of people are relying more on social to get their brand updates than ever before, especially on Facebook. But they haven't minded that. And 92% of people turned around and said they felt it was okay to be advertised to during the COVID crisis. And they use social media to purchase products or services. That's a double the amount that used to use social media for purchasing things. So it's very, very much changed. And the next thing that we have to take into account with who is the new guest are the scariest ones of all. Everybody finds your safe space. It is Gen Z. Now, these guys are a very, very different demographic to us. I'm 40 now, so I'm definitely not in there. But these guys have lived in an on-demand world since they can remember. These guys have Amazon delivering parcels to them the next day. If they want a bit of light entertainment, they look on YouTube. If they want a question answered, they go on Google. If they want to know what the name of a song is in a bar, they Shazam it. They don't sit in nasty little cab ranks like we used to. They Uber. Everything is very, very quick. Everything is very, very on demand to these people. But most of all, these guys communicate and sort of make their own rules and choose their own choice, make their own choices via what they see on social more than any other generation. And these are going to be the next guys that are going to be the heads in the beds for the hotels. So if you're not on social or you don't have a social presence, as these guys get older, they will pass you by as a hotel. If you're not in front of their face, if you're not on social, they won't see you. It's that simple. They are so used to this on-demand culture that they've been brought up in. So with a social strategy, how, when and why, and certainly not in that order. But this is a very, very basic sort of keep it simple idea when you're looking to relaunch your social. Firstly, why would you do it? So first reason, you want to capitalize on that social media usage that we spoke about a minute ago, where people have turned to social media, you know, they're dreaming on what they want to do when they feel safe to travel. You need to be in front of their eyes when they do that. It's also about gaining market share. So in the US, where we have a massive base of hotels, social is huge. It is absolutely massive to hotels in the US. The UK was slightly behind that, but I can guarantee you some of your competition is still silent, as it says there. So we know from some of our data that brands who sustained exposure during the crisis they can have a 3-fold share in the market, and they can increase rather, and they can rebound faster in recovery due to that, because people get used to seeing them in the feed. And this is the brilliant thing about social. I don't know if anyone on here saw me doing an HSMAI interview recently where I mentioned dog food, and it's come back to haunt me several times now on a regular basis. People bring it up a lot, but I don't own a dog, but I still see adverts on TV for dog food. Whereas on social, everything is targeted specifically to me and my interests. Therefore, I'm much more likely to engage with it. So that being said as well, it's about humanizing your brand with these people, empathize with what they've been through, but build the community. And community is massive in social. You may have heard it several times, but it's called the Twitter community, it's called the YouTube community, it's called the Facebook community, it's the Netflix community. Again, with these younger generations coming through, this is something they're very much used to. And there you have an audience that you can build on, and that community. And that community is interested in what you have to say because you're showing up in their feed because they've shown an interest. It's the dog thing again. So be very mindful of that, but also increasing trust, where 77% of people want to speak about, brands to speak about ways that show they're aware of the crisis, but also show the way out. People kept talking about being COVID safe. That was great 6 to 8 months ago. People now expect you to be COVID safe. They don't need to be told it as much. What they want to see is business as usual to as much of a degree as possible. So let people know that you're sympathetic to what's happened, but don't make it too much. Okay, people want to know there's a way out of this now. So this is a very easy strategic framework on how to look at things. So from your phase 1 should be your planning. That should be your selling the dream stage to people. So promote your and so at the moment it's just pre-opening efforts really, but promote those pre-opening efforts. Again, don't get too deep. Don't get too deep in the COVID safety side, but let people know what you're doing, how you've changed the hotel, if you've redecorated, any changes you've made, let them know, and give them those key hotel updates, really spotlight those. And as you ramp up, as we get closer and closer to actually reopening, then you can highlight the safety and specifics. So any expanded services you have, you can promote. So if you've changed the way you're doing your F&B, for example, anything like that, then expand those, really promote those services, but also spotlight your traditional selling points of your hotel. And this goes back to what I was saying a minute ago about business as usual. People are sick to death of COVID and hearing about COVID and being COVID safe. We want to go back to normal. We want to know what your traditional selling points of your hotel are. And that's the same as when you actually launched. It's got to be balanced. Do not scream about the new norm. That is officially the most hated term in the UK at the moment, is the new norm, along with are you on mute? It is the most hated term in the UK officially. Do not mention it. Don't put it anywhere. Don't say it to anybody. Nobody wants to hear it. We just want to know that we're out of this, and that's it. So make sure you're balanced in your approach, as I said, about not going on about COVID too much, but make sure you're also spotlighting your content strategy go forward. So people need to get used to you as you build your new audience. Make sure if you're posting, you post on the same frequency every week. Don't have 1 post this week, 3 posts next week, 6 posts the week after. People get used to seeing in your feed. Make sure your frequency is good and your content strategy is regular. And as you go into your reset timeline, I won't go through all these, but obviously you're starting to look at your relaunch strategy now. One thing that's really important is about curating and creating sensitive and appropriate content. Employee generated content, or EGC as we call it, is brilliant for this. You've all got smartphones. Everybody has a smartphone. The smartphone now is nearly as good as any expensive camera you can buy. And it's a lot cheaper than getting a professional photographer to come in. So use this EGC, this employee generated content, and then start building with a low frequency to start with if you've not got a big social following already. Now, again, that goes without saying that you continue to refine this strategy, but you need to increase the awareness. If you really want to hit it really, really hard, you have to increase with paid spend. Social media is a pay-to-play environment. Now, Facebook will always prioritize friends and family posts above any business posts. So unless you pay and you have a monthly budget attached to your social, you will disappear out the bottom and no one will ever see you. And all this money and all this time you've invested in getting great photography or great content is wasted if you don't have an ad budget. So you need to make sure you've got that in place. And then from there, it's all about benchmarking as well. And as I said earlier, about benchmarking against your competitors, that's the best way to do it. Social has got very finite numbers, very set numbers, I should say, about follower growth, about engagement. You can access all those numbers. Do that against your comp set, your local comp set, so you can position yourself properly. And then as you go on, just create and refine and keep it fluid. Don't have a set way of doing it, just keep it fluid and again, compare and contrast with your concept on a regular basis. And that's how you'll grow your audience. Now, lastly, content is king. I can't stress that enough. Content is king. I don't know, I'm sure a lot of people on here remember these films. I don't know if anyone can remember the year that they came out, but if everyone's saying it quietly in their head, having a guess, the year is 2004. These films came out. That is how long we have been posting on social media, since 2004. Now, the reason I say this and the reason I give you this example is because we have been posting static images for people to scroll past since those films came out. Now, static images are great, as I say, about using EGC, again, going around with your phone, taking photos. It's great, but it's not a long-lasting strategy, and it's not an overly future-proof strategy. So if I go on to the next page here, things that you should really start to look at are video. Video is now watched twice as much as it was before the pandemic on social. Animations and carousels, EGC, which is what I said about employee-generated content, but also UGC, user-generated content. But remember with UGC that you need to get permission. You can't just use somebody else's photo. So I know our guys in the States, they spend a lot of time for hotels tracking people down and getting their permission to use some really, really good shots that they've taken. But cinemagraphs, and we'll show you those in a second, high-res photography and Instagram stories. Instagram stories are the #1 thing on social at the moment, okay? So what you see on the left here, the image of with the drinks on fire, that's one of my favorite ones that we've done. It's engaging, it's interesting, it's bright, it's high definition, but it's just an image. If we go to the image in the middle, this is a cinemagraph. Now, I hope everyone can see that. Now, what a cinemagraph is a static image with a moving element. And these are becoming bigger and bigger and bigger on social. Now, I'll also do the same one on here if it works. Let's have a look. There he is. I hope everyone can see that. So everyone can see the guy pouring the drink there. Okay, so things like that. Now, this is where it gets very, very difficult to do in-house. This is when people tend to need to go out to agency who have the technology to do this. But my point behind all this is that static imagery will only get you so far, especially as younger generations come through. We've been doing this static image on the social since 2004, and that's a very, very long time ago. So it's something just worth keeping in mind. As we go forward, what's trending? This is the last part. What's trending on social now, and what people should be looking at for the future? Augmented reality, massive thing. I'm sure you've all been in you've seen it, where you can hold your phone up and you can have a different image from what you can see on your camera, like a kind of a filter. I'll show you an example on the right here. So this is something we're doing with Lowe's at the moment. So that's an example of augmented reality, where again, it's kind of like a filter, but it's a moving filter. This is becoming hugely popular in the States at the moment. And then we've got the high-res video, the merge animation and video, drone footage, again, massively popular. Stop motion, I can give you a quick example of that. So this is a stop motion thing we're doing at the moment for Moxie in Times Square. So aspects like that, but also high-res video and merged animation. And again, all this stuff doesn't have to cost the earth, but it's what people, as we go through, as different generations come through, it's what is going to catch the eye compared to the basic flat 2D photo. So the last one I have is, again, something we're doing for Moxie in Times Square, if it works. Never-ending carousel that they have on the roof. But again, it's this kind of stuff that really, really will catch the eye of the new guest going forward. So that just about wraps it up for me, I believe. And there's my contact details. I'm sure Robin's sending them around anyway. But thank you very much. I hope that kind of gave you a bit of an insight what's going on to social at the moment. And any questions, please feel free to give me a shout.
Anybody have any questions? There's quite a bit of chatter going on, but anybody have any questions for Stuart?
Hi Stuart, I did write a question. Obviously you were mid-presentation, which
sorry, I couldn't see it, yeah.
With TikTok now dominating the social media world, Do you think there's a place for that, for hotels to be on that? And do you think hotels should start using that now?
100%. Right, so sorry, your face is right where the chat box is, and you keep disappearing behind the chat. Yeah, very much so. I'm just, funny enough, I've just been talking to the Corinthia about this in London. So TikTokers, I thought I was far too old for TikTok. TikTok to me was something that like 13-year-olds danced on, and I had no idea what it was. Apparently, it's a lot bigger than that. We've just commissioned actually a big report into it. So a TikToker is on average twice as likely to support a brand if they feel it will increase their social standing. So that doesn't mean they can afford to stay there, doesn't mean they can afford to buy it, but they will follow it and they will promote it. If they feel that their followers, I should say, will think they're more elevated socially than they actually are. So TikTok is brilliant for promoting other aspects of a hotel. It's not necessarily going to get people, you know, the Corinthia as an example, it's not necessarily going to get somebody spending £600 a night to go and stay there, but what it will do is get people who can't afford that to go and have a drink in the bar. Because, you know, it's that kind of status level, or to go and eat in some carriages maybe, because they've seen it. So yeah, TikTok definitely has a place going forward. There's also things you can do with, again, with the augmented reality side of TikTok that are going to be very, very popular as well. So yeah, 100%. We're just moving into TikTok right now. So
yeah. Thank you.
Greg has just asked about what would you consider good conversion rate for social referral traffic for direct bookings?
How long's a piece of string? Right, I'll give you an example. So I'll give you a return on investment example. Now this goes back to what I was saying about paying to play actually as well. So we've got a hotel in the States that has a £7,000 a month ad budget. Now last month we made that hotel 65k because they've got a £7,000 a month ad budget. Now conversion and ROI on a 300 to £500 a month budget, which is the minimum you will absolutely want, by the way. Anything less than that, you might as well spend zero. I would always recommend 500 as the cheapest, 1,000 if you can. But you want to look at a conversion rate minimum, if you're doing it yourself in-house, of at least 3 to 1, 4 to 1. If you're doing it with an agency, that should be very, very different. An agency should be anywhere 15 to 20 times. Our average is 28 times return on ad investment as an agency. But it's a lot easier for us to get that than it is if you're doing it in-house. That's the issue. I'm not saying that's the finite number, but that's 3 to 4 times return on investment should be where you're heading for.
Anybody?
Stuart, sorry. Stuart, why is you're saying your return is really high if you use an agency? I mean, conventional advertising, etc., you know, as we know, is really very, very patchy, and I think a lot of people are very nervous about investing in advertising and using agencies for that very reason. They've had their fingers burnt, spending, you know, £5,000, £10,000, whatever it might be, with an agency and getting, you know, the square root of nothing back. Why do you see this new form of marketing, the social media side of it, and agencies like yourself bringing such a great return?
The main reason is, I mean, obviously I can only give you our average number. I can't talk for anybody else. But I had this conversation again with somebody last week where you ask where that ROI is coming from, and the ROI doesn't only come from people booking a room with social. The return on investment comes from every aspect of the hotel, from the MICE trade to the F&B side, but also with our side as well, with the monitoring. So what we do is we actively have our guys through our bespoke technology looking at our hotel's platforms, as I said, and from that, what that means is we can upsell or we can move any sales opportunities to the hotel, to the sales and marketing manager, because people aren't sitting in front of their social 24/7, as I said earlier, whereas we are. So what we do is we, on top of the normal engagement and the audience building, which is what we specialize in, alongside the creative, we're also monitoring and pushing these sales opportunities. We're also engaging with guests. So something else we do, for example, we hate the term influencer. It's a necessary evil in social. But what we class an influencer as is not somebody who does that as a job. It's somebody who has a high following. That could be 2,000 people, 3,000 people. Now, I'll give you a very, very brief example. We had someone recently who, and a couple of people on here have seen this, someone recently who said, I'm going to stay at the Hyatt Baha Mar, which is one of our properties. Can't wait to get there, blah, blah, blah. She had 3,500 followers, okay? So what happens is that we will then engage that person. So we will draw that level of following out. We'll class that as high because that's what the hotel has set it as. And we will then make sure the hotel knows that that person is coming and they can engage with her early. Now, in this particular example, we went down her Instagram and her Instagram was all about her dog. So we sent a load of links and pictures of her dog to which is all open, by the way. There's no weird laws against it because they have it open. We sent that to the concierge. When she got in her room, the concierge had printed off a photo of her dog, which is her favorite thing in the world, put it in a room with a free, I think it was a cake or something like that. But she then sent that to 3,000 people because Instagram, things like that, no matter what which way you paint it, Instagram is always about, look at me, look what I'm doing, you're not. It's that simple. And you give these people, I mean, I'm not on Instagram because it's not really like that, but a lot of people are. And you give these people a platform to show their followers what they've achieved that day, they will do it. So your return on investment can come from lots and lots and lots of different areas. So I completely understand what you're saying. I agree with what you're saying about people getting their fingers burnt, working with advertising agencies. But what I can only speak for us, and what we do is very, very different to what anyone else does, just mainly because of that monitoring, because of the level of creative and because of the level of analytics we have. So from our side, as I say, we get that 28 times return on average. I've seen it a lot higher. I've seen it over 100 times return. 106 is the best I've seen. And that was with a Marriott in the States. So yeah, I hope that kind of answers your question.
Yeah, that's very interesting. Thank you.
It's interesting, isn't it, that the one thing that everyone promotes as being 5-star service is actually the thing, if we do it naturally, we actually will generate that social interaction. If we just recognize that a certain client has their birthday today or likes a certain thing, and we just go ahead and give them a birthday cake, or we put flowers in the room, and we just do what was natural to the hospitality industry, we can actually generate that sort of like that interaction.
Yeah, somebody said it's likened it the other day to me to Hospitality 101, because what people are doing is they're presenting you with what they love and what they want to do, and it's open and it's there for you to see. So again, very recently we had a kid whose birthday it was, but the last time his parents were at this particular hotel, she was pregnant with the boy, and it was his 6th birthday now. So they let the hotel, they posted on social that they were going to see this hotel, and they were taking their son. We picked that up from our monitoring team. We sent it to the hotel, and when they got there was a 6th birthday cake there for him. And of course, they then get that, they splash it all over social. And that, saying what a fantastic time they've had at that particular, that was at a Marriott, funny enough, but at that particular hotel. So, all that information is there for you to get. You just have to have the time and the technology to draw it out and do something about it.
I think it's always been said that word of mouth is your best advert ever. But now we're just moving to word of mouth, but using word of mouth being promoted by social media. Yeah.
I mean, you look at this is the Gen Z. Well, no, this is the current figure. 16.5 hours a week is being spent on Facebook at the moment on average, which is certainly not by me, and I'm sure not by a lot of the people on here. But the average now for Facebook usage is 16.5 hours a week, which is crazy. But why shouldn't you be the company that's in front of that set of eyes? That's the question.
Stuart,
yeah.
Do you think that there's the case that people post things and they expect then the venue or the hotel to respond. They expect that if they say, can't wait to go here, that they're expecting that. And that if you don't deliver that, then that can be problematic as well.
Yep, 100%. And again, I like to give examples on this when I can. And we, again, I can see Julian on here, who I'm slowly morphing into, by the way, Julian. We're slowly morphing into each other. Julian, I've told you about this. We had a lady whose son was going to university in the States. So she tweeted the name of the university, the @ thing for the university, and then the @ handle for the hotel she was staying at. Now, there is absolutely 0 point for her to put the name of the hotel that she's staying at. But what happened, the upshot was that our system pulled out the fact she had 6,500 followers. So our monitoring team responded to her on behalf of the hotel and said, hi, I think her name was Dana. Hi, Dana. When are you coming to stay? Now, the obvious giveaway there is the fact that that's not the hotel answering, because they know when she's coming to stay, it's in the PMS. But people don't think like that. They've been recognized and they've been interacted with. And she's like, oh, I'm coming to stay on this date, blah, blah. So the upshot was they put a glass of wine in a room, they put a box of tissues because she said she was going to be crying because she was dropping her kid off. And a cake from the university, like a themed amenity from the university. Now she's then splashed that out to 6,500 people. People expect a response, and they wouldn't do it if they weren't going to get a response. We see it all the time. People saying, going to Chicago, can't wait to stay at, because in the small hope that when they get there, the hotel will go, brilliant, thank you for mentioning us. Here's an upgrade to your room. Now, I can give you a number: 71%, 72% of people expect to be responded to on social within 2 hours, and that's from our own data. And within 1 hour if they're complaining. Now, again, you've got to have someone there to monitor that. You've got to have someone there to see that. And this is the problem. You know, when your sales and marketing manager's running around doing various things, they're not going to see that, and they're not necessarily going to react to it. So yeah, people do it.
So would you recommend, devil's advocate here, not being on a particular chat, say not being on Twitter if you're not going to monitor it? Because I see a lot of hotels that are on Twitter, and then I look at and they're basically just like, for example, using it as a broadcast medium, whereas a lot of consumers engage with Twitter either to say, I can't wait to go, or with a question, or sometimes with a complaint. But if that's not being monitored, then is it better not to be there?
Yeah, that is a problem. Twitter is now the customer service aspect of social media. We offer Twitter again, but we recommend to people that if you have a good Facebook presence firstly, then you have a good Instagram presence secondly, depending on what age range you're going for, and Twitter is an option. Twitter as a medium has nowhere near the followers and the amount of numbers that Facebook and Instagram do. So yeah, I would agree with you that, you know, if there's one you're going to get rid of or one you don't need that you can't look after, then don't have it. The problem is that Facebook is now taking the mantle for direct communication. It's like I said, we've seen a 41% increase in our messages directly through Facebook to our hotels, and we've got sort of 500 plus hotels. People are using this now, and you have to be able to monitor that, and that's difficult.
Where do you sit on the Facebook instant messaging as the hotel's own website messaging?
No, honestly, I don't think it's the best idea. It's not bad. It's not bad. But again, it's got to be monitored, and you're at the behest of Facebook. And once you sell your soul to Facebook, you know, their updates, everything else, there's a lot that can go wrong. I think there's other messaging, there's other ways of doing it. People tend to contact you via the contact us button anyway, which is usually linked to Facebook, rather than directly on the messenger. It's not my favorite, is the honest answer.
Anybody else? We've gone past the hour as usual, but I think everybody's been well absorbed by that presentation. Just wondered if anybody has any other questions. If not, No, well, thank you very much, Stuart. That was definitely interesting. I've learned a few things, and I thought I knew a fair bit about, about this after seeing so many presentations. So certainly I'll pop Stuart's presentation in the summary as usual, and his contact details. And next 2 weeks' time, it's our anniversary. I will have been doing these forums now for a whole year. So hopefully look forward to seeing everybody there, and have a good 2 weeks. Thank you.
Thanks, guys.
Thank you.
See you later. Thanks, Robin.
Thank you, Robin.
Thank you.